My name is Tyler Morgan, and for the past 10 years, I've lived in the home my late mother built with her own two hands. It wasn't just a house, it was a sanctuary. After Mom passed away a few months ago, I was both heartbroken and resolute. In her will, she left me the house without any further explanation. I was convinced that my older sister Jessica, who always had a different way of thinking, would understand. After all, I had lived in the house, cared for Mom during her final years, and maintained every corner of that place with love and devotion. At first, I felt a profound sense of duty and gratitude. I'd spent countless hours repairing broken windows, tending to the garden she so adored, and preserving the memories etched into every room. I imagined that the rest of the family would support my decision to honor Mom's final wish. After all, Mom had made her choice deliberately. She knew exactly what she wanted for us, and I believed that choice was meant to be respected. Then came the day of the family meeting. Jessica had summoned all our relatives, Uncle Howard, Aunt Brenda, and several cousins, for a discussion about the inheritance. I arrived at the community center with a mix of grief and quiet confidence, armed with a copy of the will and letters from Mom that explained her deep attachment to the home. I sat at a long table with everyone gathered around, feeling the weight of anticipation in the air. Uncle Howard, always the measured one, began reading aloud the relevant part of the will. I bequeath my beloved family home at 456 Maple Drive solely to my son, Tyler Morgan, in recognition of his devotion and care over the past decade. I listened with my heart swelling. This was what I had hoped for. But almost immediately, Jessica's voice cut through the silence. "That's not fair, Tyler," she said, her tone clipped. "Mom would have wanted us all to benefit from her hard work. I mean, you lived with her, sure, but we're a family. The house should be sold and the money split evenly." My heart pounded as murmurs rippled through the room. Cousins exchanged glances, Aunt Brenda looked troubled, and Uncle Howard's expression shifted from calm to puzzled. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could Jessica, my own sister, twist the memory of our mother into something as cold and merciless as a financial arrangement? I tried to keep my voice steady. "Jessica, Mom made her wishes clear. She left the house to me. She chose that consciously. I've taken care of her for the last 10 years. This house is not just property, it's her legacy." I pleaded, trying to capture the love and dedication I'd invested in every nail and board of that home. But Jessica wasn't having it. "It's utterly unfair that you get everything," she insisted. "You always had her attention and care. What about the rest of us who have struggled in our own ways?" Her words stung, not because I doubted my worth, but because it felt like she was dismissing everything Mom had planned. In that moment, I realized the family meeting wasn't about honoring our mother's final wish at all. It was about power, money, and old resentments. The relatives around the table nodded in agreement with Jessica, and for the first time, I felt isolated. I began to wonder if the family I thought I knew was ready to tear apart the one tangible piece of Mom's legacy that I held dear. Leaving the meeting that day, I was filled with a mixture of anger and sorrow. The bitter taste of betrayal lingered as I drove home, and I couldn't help but question if I should even try to maintain ties with those who couldn't respect my mother's conscious decision. I knew one thing for sure. Mom entrusted me with her home for a reason, and I wasn't about to let anyone force me to sell it. After the meeting, the discussions continued among our relatives. Every conversation I overheard seemed to reaffirm what Jessica had argued, that I was somehow hogging our mother's legacy. Phone calls, heated texts, and whispered conversations in hallways made it clear that many in our extended family believed I should compromise and sell the house. I felt increasingly cornered, as if my right to honor Mom's memory was being attacked by people who cared more about money than about her true wishes. I decided that I had to confront Jessica directly. One chilly evening, I invited her to meet me at our old family home, the house that had been Mom's pride and joy. I wanted answers. I wanted to understand why she could so easily dismiss everything Mom had stood for. As I sat in the dimly lit living room surrounded by photographs of happier times, I waited for her arrival. When Jessica finally arrived, her face was a mix of defiance and sadness. "Tyler, I know you're upset," she began cautiously, "but we need to be realistic. Mom's house is a relic. It's expensive to maintain, and it ties you down. Don't you think it's better for everyone if we sell it and divide the proceeds?" I clenched my fists, struggling to control my anger. Realistic. Jessica, Mom loved this house. She put her heart and soul into it. I've cared for it as if it were a living part of our family. She left it to me because she believed I'd honor her memory. You're asking me to throw that away just because you think money should come before memories. Her eyes flashed with frustration. It's not about memories, Tyler. It's about fairness. You got all the benefits. She was always with you, and you did everything for her. What about me? I've sacrificed, too. I want a share of what Mom left behind. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm despite the storm inside me. Jessica, this isn't about sacrifice. It's about respecting her wishes. She knew exactly what she was doing when she wrote her will. I can't simply dismiss her decision as unfair because it doesn't suit your agenda. Our argument spiraled, with each word exposing deeper wounds. I accused her of being greedy and resentful, while she accused me of being selfish and stubborn. The conversation, which began as a desperate attempt to understand her point of view, quickly devolved into an all-out family war. I realized that this wasn't merely a disagreement about property. It was a battle for our very identity as a family, a clash between honoring the past and succumbing to the pressures of financial pragmatism. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I was about to lose more than just a house. I was losing the only tangible piece of Mom's memory that had kept me grounded. And worst of all, I began to question whether I could ever trust my own family again. If they were so eager to override her conscious decision, what did that say about our bond? Was I destined to be the black sheep, forever guarding a legacy that no one else respected? I didn't know then if I should break off all ties with them, but I felt the urge to distance myself from a system that prized money over love and respect. The confrontation with Jessica had opened a wound that I wasn't sure could ever be healed. And so, I resolved to stand my ground, no matter the cost, even if it meant risking the relationships I once cherished. In the weeks that followed the heated confrontation, I found myself increasingly isolated. The family gatherings became infrequent and tense affairs. When I received calls or messages, they were laced with subtle criticisms about my stubbornness and inability to compromise. Even Aunt Brenda, who once offered her quiet support, seemed to side with Jessica. It felt like everyone had forgotten that Mom had made her decision consciously, and that her will was a reflection of her true wishes. I retreated into my work and into the solitude of the old house. Every creaking floorboard, every familiar scent in the kitchen reminded me of Mom, and of the betrayal I now carried in my heart. I spent hours in the study, poring over Mom's letters and photographs, trying to cling to the memories that justified my decision. In those quiet moments, the house transformed into both a shrine and a battleground, each room a testament to the life we once shared. I began to ask myself difficult questions. Had I been too blinded by my own convictions to see the rest of my family's needs? Was it possible that Jessica's resentment stemmed from feelings of neglect or jealousy? Or was it simply greed? The more I delved into these thoughts, the more I realized that the issue was not black and white. Our family was complex, with wounds and rivalries that had developed long before Mom's passing. Late one night, I sat on the back steps, staring at the starry sky. The cool night air did little to soothe the burning questions in my mind. I recalled the warmth of family dinners, the sound of Mom's laughter, and the gentle way she always tried to mediate between us. I wondered if, beneath all the anger, there was still a possibility for reconciliation, even if it meant redefining what family meant in the aftermath of such a bitter conflict. I decided to write in my journal, a habit Mom had encouraged in me. I poured out my heart, describing the sense of abandonment I felt, not only by Mom's final wish but by the very people I thought I loved. I wrote about the deep pain of seeing a tangible legacy, our home, turn into a symbol of division rather than unity. And as the ink flowed onto the paper, I realized that I was at a crossroads. I could continue to let this betrayal fester, or I could choose a path of healing, even if it meant forgiving those who had hurt me. The process wasn't instantaneous. There were days when the memory of Jessica's harsh words, the murmurs of disapproval at family gatherings, would overwhelm me. But gradually, I began to see a glimmer of hope in the small acts of kindness that sometimes broke through the darkness. A cousin would send a text saying, "I miss the old days," or Uncle Howard would quietly ask if I needed help with repairs around the house. Each gesture, though small, reminded me that not everyone had turned against me, and that maybe, just maybe, there was room for healing. It wasn't long before a turning point emerged. One crisp autumn afternoon, after a particularly painful family dinner where even Aunt Brenda's hesitant sympathy couldn't mask the tension, Jessica unexpectedly reached out to me. We met at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town, a neutral space away from the familiar battleground of family disputes. Sitting across from her, I was struck by how tired she looked. Her eyes, once filled with defiance, now held traces of regret. "Tyler," she said softly, "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I realize now that my anger wasn't entirely about money. I felt sidelined, like you always had Mom's love and attention, and I never got to be a part of that closeness." Her voice trembled with vulnerability, and for a moment, I saw the sister I'd once known. I took a deep breath and replied, "Jessica, I never meant to leave you out. Mom's decision was hers, and I believed she chose me for a reason. But hearing you say that, it hurts because I always thought we were in this together. I cared for her, yes, but I also wished that you and I could have shared that burden, that legacy." We talked for hours, discussing childhood memories, our differing interpretations of Mom's love, and the pressures each of us had felt growing up. Jessica admitted that she had long harbored feelings of neglect. She often felt like a shadow in the background, while I was the one who was given the responsibility of caring for Mom. I realized that her desire to sell the house wasn't solely driven by greed. It was also a cry for validation, a wish to feel that her life and sacrifices mattered as much as mine. Though our conversation didn't solve everything, it opened a door to understanding. We agreed that Mom's legacy should be honored in a way that respected her wishes while also acknowledging the contributions and feelings of everyone in our family. I still believed that keeping the house was what Mom wanted, but I began to consider that maybe there was a way to involve her memory in a broader, more inclusive manner. By the end of our meeting, a tentative reconciliation had begun. Jessica promised to work with me rather than against me. We decided to invite the rest of the family for another discussion, one where we could all speak openly about what Mom's legacy meant to each of us. I wasn't sure if this would mend all the fractures, but it was a start, a glimmer of hope that maybe we could forge a new understanding. The following months became a journey of healing and redefinition. Together, Jessica and I organized a series of family gatherings at the house. Mom's house, a place that now served as both a memorial and a living symbol of her enduring love. We set up a memorial corner, filled with her photographs, letters, and personal items that told the story of her life. In that sacred space, each relative was invited to share their memories, their tributes, and their dreams for the future. Slowly, the heated debates about money and property were replaced by heartfelt stories about Mom. The lessons she taught us, the laughter we shared, and the unconditional love that had once bound us all together. The house, once a flashpoint for discord, became a common ground where we could all come together and heal. I continued to care for the property with the same devotion I always had, but now Jessica and I worked side by side, planning small renovations, tending to the garden, and even organizing community events in her honor. There were still moments of tension. Old wounds take time to mend, but the atmosphere gradually shifted. I learned that forgiveness is not about erasing the past, but about accepting it as part of who we are and then choosing to move forward. The process was slow and, at times, painful. But each time I saw Jessica's eyes soften as she listened to a family member's recollection of Mom, or felt the warmth of our relatives gathered in the living room, I knew that our decision to honor her wishes while embracing change was the right one. Our journey also brought unexpected benefits. In our renewed commitment to family, I discovered a strength I never knew I had. I reached out to a trusted counselor and joined a support group for those grappling with loss and familial betrayal. Through those conversations, I began to see that while our ideals were important, they were not the only thing that defined us. The love we had for Mom, and for each other, was even more powerful. Today, as I sit on the back porch of our home, watching the sunset over the yard that Mom once tended with such care, I feel a cautious optimism for the future. I still hold tightly to my belief that the house was her deliberate choice, a gift meant to honor the life she lived. But I also recognize that our family has grown and changed in her absence. We may never fully recapture what once was, but in the cracks of our broken trust, New bonds are being forged. Bonds built on honesty, forgiveness, and a shared commitment to preserving our mother's memory in a way that unites rather than divides. I still wonder sometimes if the pain of betrayal will ever completely fade. Yet, with every passing day, I see the seeds of healing taking root. Jessica and I now share more than just a legacy. We share a determination to build a future that reflects both our mother's values and the hard-won lessons of our past. We've learned that family isn't about perfection. It's about standing together in the face of adversity, about recognizing our flaws and working together to overcome them. I made a promise to myself and to Mom that I would continue to honor her memory. Not by clinging to a relic of the past, but by using her legacy as a foundation to build something new, something better. As I watch Ben playing in the yard with carefree joy, I know that our family's future will be shaped not by old grudges or bitter disputes, but by the hope that emerges when we choose love, honesty, and forgiveness over division. In the end, I have come to understand that while the house remains my inheritance, it now belongs to all of us. A symbol of a past that we honor, a present that challenges us, and a future that, though uncertain, holds the promise of reconciliation. And so, with every sunrise, I step forward with a renewed commitment to healing, knowing that true strength lies in our ability to forgive and in our willingness to embrace the messy, beautiful reality of family. It had been nearly a year since Mom passed away and left me her beloved home. For 10 long years, I had cared for that house with every ounce of devotion, mending its broken windows, tending the garden, and preserving memories in every corner. I had believed with all my heart that our family would honor Mom's wishes. In her will, she had deliberately bequeathed the house solely to me, a decision she made after decades of reflection on the love, commitment, and responsibility that defined our lives together. Yet, that conscious choice had torn our family apart. My sister Jessica, who always seemed to wear a mask of practicality and ambition, declared it unfair and insisted that we sell the property and divide the money. At the family meeting, every relative, Uncle Howard, Aunt Brenda, cousins, even distant kin, took sides, pressuring me to yield. I felt isolated, betrayed, and conflicted. Could I possibly stand by a decision I believed in while my family's demands for compromise gnawed at my soul? For many sleepless nights afterward, I wandered the halls of our old home, each creak and whisper of wind through the windowpane echoing memories of happier times. I found myself questioning not only Jessica's motives but my own convictions. Had I been too stubborn in clinging to Mom's final wish? Could it be that our family's needs, though different from mine, deserved recognition too? In the solitude of that house, once filled with Mom's warm laughter and the sweet scent of her favorite roses, I embarked on a journey of introspection and soul-searching. I began keeping a detailed journal, a practice Mom had always encouraged. Page after page, I poured out my conflicted thoughts. The agony of betrayal, the ache of isolation, the desperate longing to honor our mother's legacy while mending fractured bonds. I wrote about the family meetings that left me bruised and the bitter conversations with Jessica, where harsh words were exchanged like weapons. Yet, amid the pain, I also chronicled moments of unexpected tenderness. A cousin's quiet apology, a long-lost relative's reminder of the love that had once bound us all together, and the soft, forgiving smile on Jessica's face during a rare moment of vulnerability. One particularly bitter evening, after another heated argument over the house, I sat alone in the study with the glow of a single lamp lighting up Mom's handwritten letters and photographs. I could almost hear her gentle voice urging me to stay true to my heart. "Tyler," one note read, "remember that love is patient and kind. Let not bitterness cloud your judgment, for our legacy is built not only on property, but on the truth of our hearts." Those words became a lifeline, a reminder that even the deepest wounds might one day be healed if we were willing to face them honestly. Determined to forge a new path, I reached out to a counselor recommended by a close friend. In our sessions, I learned that forgiveness was not an act of forgetting but a gradual process of accepting that people, even those we love, can falter. I realized that Jessica's push to sell the house was not solely motivated by greed or envy. It was also a manifestation of her long-held feelings of neglect and being sidelined. Throughout our childhood, while I had been the one entrusted with Mom's care, Jessica often felt that her own sacrifices were overlooked. The counselor helped me see that our conflict was less about the monetary value of a house and more about the deep-seated emotional wounds that had festered over the years. Armed with this new perspective, I decided it was time for another family meeting. one where the conversation could move beyond accusations and retribution. I reached out to Jessica, inviting her for coffee at the small cafe near the park where we used to play as children. Under a sky streaked with the soft hues of early autumn, we sat facing each other. There was tension in the air, but also an unmistakable longing for reconciliation. "Tyler," Jessica began, her voice low and tentative, "I've been thinking a lot about everything. I know I hurt you by insisting we sell the house. I've always felt like I was living in your shadow, like you were the one Mom trusted most. And it made me resentful. I'm sorry, truly, for the way I've pushed my views on you." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she continued. "I never wanted to tear our family apart. I wanted to feel valued too." I took a long, steadying breath. "Jessica, I've felt that hurt too. I always assumed we were on the same page, that Mom's decision was clear because she knew what she wanted for our family. But it seems we each carry our own pain. I can't imagine how it must have felt to be sidelined all these years. Yet, I also can't let go of the responsibility I feel to honor Mom's wishes." Our conversation stretched for hours, ebbing and flowing between raw emotions and tentative understanding. We discussed our childhood memories, how Mom had always tried to bridge the gap between us, her gentle interventions that attempted to make us both feel loved. We recalled the times when our laughter filled the house, when differences were set aside in favor of unity. And slowly, amid the gentle murmur of confessions and apologies, we began to see a glimmer of a path forward, a way to honor both our mother's explicit wishes and the implicit need for family solidarity. Inspired by that breakthrough, I decided to host a new gathering at the house, a celebration of memories, as I called it. I reached out to every relative who had been part of the previous meetings. I wanted to create a space where Mom's legacy could be shared in a way that transcended the bitter dispute over property. Over the course of several weeks, I transformed the house into a living memorial. I set up a gallery of photographs, carefully curated letters, and mementos that told the story of our family's love for Mom. In the dining room, I arranged a table laden with dishes that Mom used to make, a blend of her favorite recipes, each prepared with a mix of nostalgia and hope. When the day of the gathering arrived, the house buzzed with a strange, fragile energy. Relatives who had once been divided by harsh words now found themselves sharing stories of Mom's kindness, her laughter, and the warmth she exuded. I watched as even Uncle Howard, who had always maintained a stern facade, allowed himself to smile at a recollection of a family picnic in the backyard. Jessica, too, seemed to soften. She lingered by the memorial display, gently touching an old, faded photograph as tears welled in her eyes. During the event, I took a moment to speak. "I know that our family is hurting," I began, voice steady but filled with emotion. "Mom left us this house as a symbol of her love and trust. It was her deliberate decision, and I believe it was made with all her heart. But I also understand that each of us feels a part of her legacy. Today, I want us to honor her not by fighting over walls and money, but by coming together to remember the love she gave us all." There was a palpable silence, as if every person in the room was weighing the meaning of those words. One by one, my relatives nodded in agreement, and even Jessica's eyes glistened with a quiet understanding. That day marked the beginning of a slow, healing process. It wasn't as if the pain vanished overnight, nor did all the old grievances disappear with it. But the walls of resentment began to crumble, replaced by a tentative willingness to listen, to share, and to forgive. In the months that followed, our family continued to meet, not out of obligation or a sense of duty, but out of a genuine desire to heal. Jessica and I worked side by side to maintain the house, each of us contributing in our own way. We renovated a small section of the backyard to create a community garden, where cousins and relatives would sometimes gather to plant flowers and share stories of Mom. Every brush stroke on the faded walls, every repaired window, became a symbol of our commitment to building a future where memories and love outweighed past grievances. There were still challenging days when I would wake up with a heavy heart, remembering the bitter words exchanged at previous meetings, or when I'd catch a glimpse of Jessica's guarded expression and feel the sting of unresolved hurt. Yet, I learned that forgiveness is not a destination but a journey. I attended counseling groups for those grappling with loss and betrayal, and through those sessions, I realized that our pain, as deep as it was, could eventually transform into a source of strength. I discovered that when we choose to be honest with ourselves and with each other, even the darkest chapters of our lives can give way to hope. Now, as I sit on the back porch of our home in the soft light of a fading autumn day, I reflect on the long, winding road that has brought us to this point. The house remains my inheritance, a tangible, sacred reminder of Mom's love and her conscious decision to entrust it to me. But it has also become a living testament to our family's resilience. The painful disputes, the bitterness of betrayal, and the difficult, tearful conversations have all led to a place of tentative reconciliation. Our home, once a battleground of conflicting ideals, now stands as a unifying force. One that holds our shared memories, our collective grief, and our hopeful aspirations for the future. I have come to understand that while the house is mine by legal right, its true value lies in the love and memories it shelters. It belongs to all of us in a way, a symbol of what we have lost and what we can still rebuild together. I still feel the scars of betrayal, and there are moments when the past aches with an intensity that is hard to bear. Yet, I choose to see each scar as a reminder of the lessons learned, that honesty, forgiveness, and compassion are the pillars upon which true family is built. Looking into the distance as the sun sets behind the trees, I make a silent vow to continue nurturing the fragile trust that has begun to bloom in our midst. I promise to keep Mom's memory alive, not by clinging to bitterness or isolation, but by embracing the possibility of renewal. Whether or not every relative will ever fully understand or accept my decision, I know that the path I've chosen is one of integrity. I will honor my mother's conscious wish and build a future where our family, despite its imperfections, stands united by the truth. This journey is far from over. There will be setbacks and days when the wounds feel too fresh to bear. But I have learned that each day offers a new chance to forgive, to understand, and to grow. And in that growth, I find hope. A hope that one day, our family can look back on these painful times as the crucible in which our true bond was forged. As I close my eyes tonight, listening to the gentle rustle of the leaves and the soft hum of the old house, I am filled with a quiet determination. The battle for our family's soul is not won with grand gestures or sweeping declarations. It is won through the daily commitment to be honest, to listen, and to love. In that commitment, I see the legacy Mom so cherished, a legacy that will live on in every memory, every shared meal, and every moment of genuine connection. And so, as the night deepens and the stars emerge one by one, I stand ready to face whatever comes next. I carry with me the lessons of the past, the pain that has shaped me, and the enduring hope that together, we can rebuild not just a house, but the true home of our hearts. For in the end, it is not the walls that define us, but the love that dwells within.